I decided to take it a little slow this week. I worked on the UI and debugged some issues with the game. The first thing on my task list was to decide whether I wanted to keep a double tap or implement a swiping mechanic to change the orientation of the grid. I asked the ArchiDev Discord about this, and they asked me why I had a double tap. I explained that I wanted to minimize the number of accidental moves. I got a suggestion to implement an undo button if that is what I was going for. I added the undo button to my to-do list. We never came to a conclusion if the game should have swiping or tapping. For the time being, the game works with both mechanics. I spoke to my artist friend who's helping with the game, and he gave me some basic assets I could use. He also told me to swap out the fonts I was using. After implementing the undo button, I added a restart button and a move counter for the players to see the number of moves. After completing my UI tasks, I moved on to the bugs. I had this bug where the orientation of the grid wouldn't match the direction of the tiles flipping. And whenever I have a bug, there are some useful steps that I follow. First, try to reproduce the bug consistently. For this bug, I figured out when a level was completed and the grid was in a vertical orientation, I could reproduce this issue. Second, try to narrow down the issue. Where is the bug coming from? I checked the animator controller for the grid, that seemed okay. I checked out the logic for changing the orientation, and that seemed fine too. I narrowed it down to the tile spawning logic I had for the grid. Third, use tools to your advantage to gather as much information as you can. In my case, I used debug logs and attached the Visual Studio debugger to Unity. I put breakpoints in my script to see the flow of the code. Last but the most important thing is, don't assume the behavior of your code. Let me explain a little more. Of course, the code is not behaving the way you intended it to, but question everything. One way to achieve this effect is by using the rubber ducky method. In this method, you pretend to explain your code to a rubber ducky. I started explaining the code out loud and I caught the mistake. I said, it spawns the tile with the given position and rotation and sets the parent of the tile. This tipped me off. I realized that I was spawning the tiles in world position before the grid reset itself. In essence, I was spawning a grid that was already in the flipped state. So now, before spawning the tiles, I just correct the rotation of the grid. Debugging is not fun, but when a bug is solved, it's incredibly satisfying. After resolving that bug, I was tired and I called it a night. Next week, I'll be working on the rewards for completing a level.